My name is Mark. For 15 years, I worked the midnight shift at the Old Ridge Cemetery, a sprawling Victorian place outside of Portland. 15 years of cold wind, silence, and the smell of wet marble. Routine was my safety blanket. Every night, 11 p.m. clock in, 12 a.m. patrol, 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the booth, 5 a.m. final lockdown. Always the same. And then came October 1998. It started with the North Gate. It's a huge, iron beast, heavy as a safe, and secured with a padlock I could trust with my life. On the night of the 13th, during my final check at 5:05 a.m., I found it ajar. Not wide open, just enough for a hand to slip through. Impossible. I always checked the shackle twice. I chalked it up to faulty hardware, maybe a temperature drop shifting the metal. I logged it, double-locked it, and went home. But the next night, the 14th, the same thing. 5:05 a.m., the North Gate, ajar. That's when the routine started to fracture. I stopped reporting it. If I told my supervisor, they'd call it vandals, tighten security, and ruin the quiet I cherished. But I knew it wasn't kids. Kids would kick the gate or leave graffiti. This was too clean, too precise. On the 17th, I went straight to the North Gate at 3 a.m. I checked the shackle with my flashlight, locked tight. I didn't use my keys. I just stared at it, listening to the wind and the far-off sounds of the city. Then I drove back to my booth, pulled up a chair, and waited. At 4:47 a.m., the quiet broke. It wasn't a sound I could pin down. No creak of metal, no footstep on the gravel. It was a subtle shift in the air pressure, a slow, heavy displacement of silence. I felt it through the floorboards. I grabbed my radio, but my hand froze before I could press the button. I didn't want to miss the crucial moment. I watched the clock tick to 5:05 a.m. Nothing. The tension was unbearable, like waiting for a bell that refuses to chime. Then, I heard a sound from outside the booth. A distinct, quiet click. Not the sound of a key turning, but of a mechanism being released. I sped back to the North Gate, tires crunching on the gravel. The gate was, predictably, ajar. But this time, I saw something new. The ground immediately beneath the gate was damp, not wet from rain or dew. This was a slick, dark moisture that looked like water but smelled faintly metallic, like old pennies. And crossing the damp path was a subtle, long drag mark. Not a footprint, just a wide indentation in the soil, like something immensely heavy had been pulled across the ground. I drove the length of the perimeter, expecting to see a figure, a truck, anything. The street was empty. When I returned, the dampness was already evaporating. The night of the 21st, I brought my own tool, an old voice-activated recorder. I buried it in the dirt about 10 feet from the North Gate, pointed toward the lock. I checked the tape at 5:30 a.m. The gate was open. I rewound the tape in my booth. Silence. Then, at the 5:05 a.m. mark, a low, thick exhale. It wasn't human. It was deep, wet, and lasted for about 5 seconds. Right after the exhale, I heard the faint metallic clink of the shackle pulling free. And then, the sound that made my blood turn cold. A very slow, grinding scrape of iron on cement. It wasn't the sound of the gate opening. It was the sound of the gate being forced shut after being opened. The thing was leaving. The final 2 weeks were a waking nightmare. I stopped sleeping. I started patrolling the gate with my shotgun, just holding it, but I never saw anything. The gate would be open, the ground would be damp, and the air would feel stale. On the night of the 31st, I found a definitive answer, worse than any vandal. The gate was ajar. I checked the padlock with my flashlight. It was hanging there, locked, exactly as I had left it. I shone my light on the shackle, the U-shaped bar that locks the gate, and then I saw it. A second padlock, identical to mine, was looped onto the gate from the inside. It wasn't that the creature was breaking the lock, it was learning how to lock the gate from the other side. It was showing me that it was capable of both entering and securing the place. I never touched that second lock. I didn't need to. I understood what the routine meant. It wasn't trying to escape. It was simply observing and mirroring my duties. It was listening to the rhythm of the graveyard and inserting itself into the flow. I resigned the next morning. When the replacement supervisor asked why, I told him the north gate needed a new lock, a stronger one. But the truth is, the lock was fine. The problem was, whatever was on the other side of the gate, listening to the shift change, and waiting for its turn to close the archive. And I wasn't going to be around for that final lockdown.
My name is Arthur. I spent 5 years working as a restoration archivist for the Historical Preservation Society. My job was digitalizing the oldest sections of the city's largest public cemetery, a project nobody else wanted. I was essentially a ghost chaser with a high-resolution camera, meticulously documenting crumbling stone before the weather erased it. It was tedious, solitary work. The trouble started in Section C, a forgotten corner overgrown with ivy and neglect. Most of the stones there were too weathered to read, their names erased by decades of rain. I was packing up late one afternoon. The sun was already bleeding orange behind the mausoleums when I saw a monument I hadn't logged. It was a single slab of rough granite, angled oddly, almost pushed into the ground. It had no name, no dates, just a single disturbing symbol. A crude circle with 3 lines dragged through it, like an eye clawed out. It felt wrong. The air around it was genuinely cold, even for late November. I pulled out my equipment, thinking I had to log it, if only for completeness. I set up the light and took a dozen high-flash shots, trying to get the symbol clearly. I remember feeling a strong, unsettling sense of urgency, like I was rushing to capture something before it could move. The next morning, back in my clean, safe lab, I pulled up the photos on the large monitor. The symbol was clear, sharp. I zoomed in, looking at the granite grain, and that's when I saw the anomaly on the 10th photo. It was faint, almost too subtle to catch, hidden in the deep shadow cast by the monument. It wasn't a squirrel or a bird. It was the unmistakable shape of a human figure, hunched low against the side of the slab. It wasn't looking at the camera, but at me, Arthur, the photographer. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and it seemed impossibly thin. I dismissed it immediately. Light refraction, lens flare, a trick of the eye caused by the low sun. I deleted the 10th photo and continued with the rest of my work. But the anomaly didn't stay in the cemetery. 2 days later, I was documenting a family plot. I took a routine photo of an urn on a stand. Later that evening, reviewing the file at home, I saw it again. A shadow. The same unnatural figure, hunched over in the background of my living room, cast onto the far wall. The photo was taken in the cemetery. There was no background wall. My heart started to pound. I checked the metadata. Cemetery location, correct time, correct date. Yet the shadow, darker, sharper this time, was undeniably there. It looked like it was climbing the wall, its long limbs stretched. I deleted the photo and felt a genuine chill run down my spine. This wasn't a flaw, it was contamination. Something I photographed had followed me. Over the next week, the haunting became photographic. I stopped taking pictures, but the problem was already in the files. Every time I opened my project folder, new photos appeared. Images I didn't take, showing my apartment. They were mundane, my kitchen table, my hallway, my bedroom door. But in the corner of every shot, the hunched shadow was closer, sharper, clearer. It was always looking at the camera, and therefore, at me. The sense of imminent invasion was terrifying. I started checking my security cameras. Nothing. My apartment was clean. Yet my photo library told a different story. A story of a silent, slow creep toward me. The final photo appeared on my desktop on a Saturday morning. It wasn't mundane. It was a close-up of my own reflection in the bathroom mirror. My face was pale, my eyes wide with fatigue. But the horror wasn't my tired face. The reflection was not smiling, but the shadow hunched behind me had its face pressed close to the glass, and it held its hand up, mimicking my own gesture, but its long fingers were curled into a claw. I screamed and smashed the monitor with my fist. I never opened that photo folder again. I quit my job, sold my equipment, and moved 3 states away, leaving all my hard drives behind. But sometimes, when I unlock my phone camera and the screen flicks on, there is a split-second delay before the image stabilizes. In that sliver of time, I see the figure, still hunched, still waiting in the corner of the frame. And I know the curse wasn't on the stone. It was in the light I used to capture it. And now the shadow is always there, waiting for the flash.
They called us stupid, and maybe they were right. We were just bored kids with too much energy and nowhere to put it. This was last summer, July 2023, and me, Dean, and Manny decided to hit the old Green Lawn Cemetery. It's huge and neglected, perfect for messing around. It wasn't about theft or anything serious, just dumb fun. Kicking over a few of those cheap plastic flower vases, shouting dumb things in the dark. We were trying to scare each other, not expecting anything real to scare us back. We were deep in the oldest section, where the stones are black with mold. Manny was laughing, filming us with his phone flashlight. Dean, the biggest idiot, was trying to push over an angel statue. That's when it started. It wasn't a scream or a moan. It was a sound I'd never heard before, but I instantly knew it was wrong. It was a high-pitched, dry rasping like chalk scraping a blackboard, but incredibly sharp, like a knife edge. And it was loud, vibrating right through my shoes. Manny stopped filming. Dean froze with his hands on the statue. "What was that?" Dean whispered, his voice cracking. The rasping sound stopped abruptly. The silence that followed was heavy, like the air itself had been sucked out. We didn't hear crickets, wind, or the distant highway, just us breathing way too fast. Then the sound came back, but this time it was coming from the ground. It was a steady, fast scratching sound, like fingernails dragging across marble, but the rhythm was purposeful, like someone was drawing a straight line. "Run!" Manny choked out. We didn't need to be told twice. We bolted. I remember tripping over a low stone, scrambling up and running blind. The entire time, the sound was following us. But it wasn't just following. It was always behind our feet, like a razor-sharp shadow chasing our heels. We ran down the main path towards the gate. We thought we had put distance between us and the sound, but then the worst thing happened. I heard a distinct shh sound, and a section of the paved path right in front of Dean split. Not cracked, it split. A hairline fissure appeared, running perfectly straight for maybe 10 feet, ending right before Dean's left foot. The sound stopped. We were paralyzed. Dean looked down at the line, then at us, his face white. "It cut the ground," he stammered. "It tried to trip me." The scratching sound started again, immediately, this time surrounding us. It wasn't behind us anymore. It was coming from the stone on our left, the stone on our right, and the pavement beneath us, all moving in a coordinated, slow circle, drawing a perfect, silent cage around us. I looked down and saw my own shadow vibrating on the ground because of the intense friction noise coming from the stone. I started kicking at the pavement, screaming for it to stop. Manny had the worst luck. He tried to jump over the nearest barrier, but as he did, the high, sharp, rasping sound shot out from the mausoleum wall beside him. He screamed and landed hard. When he tried to get up, he couldn't. We got him out of there, dragging him under the iron gate. We didn't stop running until we hit the highway lights. Manny's fine now, mostly. But his left foot, he can walk, but he walks with a terrible limp. The doctors couldn't find a broken bone or nerve damage. They found nothing, but Manny told me what happened when he fell. He said when that rasping sound hit the wall next to him, he felt something like a line being drawn taut around his ankle, impossibly strong, snapping the tendons. We never went back. But sometimes, when I'm alone in my room, I hear a faint, high-pitched scratching. It's never loud enough to come from outside. It's always right below my floorboards, tracing a slow, straight line. I know it's still out there, and I know it's patient. It just waits for the next time we decide to trespass. It waits for the sound of our shoes on sacred ground.
My name is Finn. I run a channel focused on urban exploration. draining tunnels, abandoned factories, that kind of thing. I specialize in places that are supposed to be inaccessible. Last summer, I got a tip about the old St. Jude's plot, a cemetery supposedly so small and forgotten it doesn't appear on any modern maps. My goal was to find the legendary central crypt. I found the entrance on a Tuesday night. It was just a break in a high brick wall, no gate, just a gaping hole. The second I stepped inside, my GPS died. No signal, total blackout. Perfect. The first hour was great. The place was tiny, maybe 2 acres. I recorded everything, noting the peculiar silence. The air was heavy, like the entire plot was a forgotten aquarium. I easily found the central path I'd read about, a long, straight avenue leading to where the crypt should be. But the crypt never showed up. I walked. And I walked. I was pacing what should have been a 5-minute walk, but I was moving for 10, then 15 minutes. I kept passing the same distinctive row of 4 identical angel statues. 4. I was confident I was walking in a straight line, but logic insisted I had walked the perimeter of the entire 2 acres 3 times over. I stopped recording and looked around. The cemetery was vast now. The trees were thicker, the mist was heavier, and I couldn't see the brick wall I'd entered through. It was like the space itself was stretching around me. I tried to backtrack. I turned 180 degrees and walked back the way I came. I walked for about 7 minutes and stopped cold. Right in front of me, the same 4 identical angel statues. I was back where I started. Panic started to set in. I pulled out my compass, the physical one. The needle spun wildly for a second, then settled, pointing definitively north. I followed north, keeping my eyes fixed on the gravestones to my left. I noted a tall, crooked cross. I kept walking. After what felt like 100 yards, I glanced left. The tall, crooked cross was behind me, not beside me. My compass still pointed north. That's when I realized the horrifying truth. The path itself was moving. The ground wasn't still. The entire space was quietly, seamlessly rearranging itself around me, connecting roads that shouldn't connect, moving the markers to send me back where I started, or worse, somewhere new. I started running, weaving through the crooked stones, trying to break the pattern. As I ran, I heard a new sound, a faint, dry scraping noise, like old wood being dragged slowly over stone. It seemed to come from all the side paths simultaneously. I dove behind a large mausoleum for cover. The scraping sound grew louder, moving slowly along what should have been the main avenue. I peered out from behind the stone. The fog was almost solid now, but through it, I saw something that made me gasp. The entire row of headstones along the path was slowly tilting, one after the other, like dominoes falling in slow motion. As they tilted, the scraping sound intensified. They weren't falling down, they were reorienting, changing the direction of the path. I knew if I moved, I'd be walking into whatever new configuration the cemetery was building. I stayed frozen, watching the stones turn. I stayed behind that mausoleum until the scraping sound faded and the sunlight finally began to cut through the heavy mist. As the first rays hit the ground, the fog vanished instantly. I stood up. I was no longer in the endless expanse. I was standing 5 feet from the main road, right next to the small hole in the brick wall where I had entered. The 2 acres had snapped back to their actual size. I ran out and never looked back. I didn't get the crypt footage, but I got something far worse. Now, whenever I walk through a long corridor or an empty parking lot, I have to look behind me. I have to check the landmarks. Because sometimes, just for a second, I see the straight line I'm on slowly curving in my peripheral vision. And I hear that faint scraping sound starting beneath my feet. I know it's waiting for me to step into a place that is too quiet, where the maps don't work, and the paths want to be left alone.
My name is George. I've been a grave digger and groundskeeper at St. Michael's for 27 years. I know every stone, every tree, every shallow dip in the earth. I'm not superstitious. Death is my job. It's quiet, final, and predictable. Or so I thought. This happened in the spring of 2020. I was finishing up a day's work, smoothing the sod over a freshly closed grave. The sun was gone, and I was just waiting for the foreman to do his final drive-through. I took a slow walk back toward the shed, enjoying the evening air. That's when I saw it. It was maybe 50 yards from where I was standing, in the older, unscheduled section, a part of the cemetery where we only dig maybe once every 5 years. It was a brand new headstone, small, gray granite, simple cut. I stopped dead. I knew every burial scheduled for that week, and there was absolutely no funeral planned for that section, let alone a stone already installed. A headstone needs a truck, a permit, and at least 2 men to set. I walked over, my heart beginning to tick a nervous rhythm I hadn't felt in years. As I got closer, I saw the details. The stone was smooth, recently polished, and deeply engraved. No name was listed, which was unusual, but not unheard of. It just had a few lines of inscription. Born June 14th, 1978. Died tomorrow. I stood there staring at the stone, feeling the blood drain from my face. I was born on June 14th, 1978. This wasn't some generic placeholder. This stone was mine. Someone, or something, had installed my final marker in my workplace, and it was waiting for me. I checked the surrounding area. No tracks, no disturbed soil, no sign of a vehicle, no tools. The grass around the base of the stone was undisturbed, as if the slab had simply grown out of the ground. I touched it. The granite was cold, impossibly cold, and felt strangely velvety, not like rough stone. I told myself it was a prank, a sick joke from one of the night security guys, but none of them knew my date of birth. I spent the next hour desperately trying to find an explanation. I pulled up the burial logs. Nothing. I checked with the stone supplier I use. No one had ordered a blank marker with those specific dates. The thing was an anomaly, an impossible piece of physical evidence designed for one person. The terror wasn't in the fear of being murdered. It was in the absolute certainty the stone carried. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. I went home that night and barely slept. When I woke up on the morning of my death date, I was tense, expecting the end with every car that drove by. Nothing happened. The day was normal, routine. But when I went back to work that afternoon, I drove straight to the stone. The dates hadn't changed, but beneath the "died tomorrow" line, a new line had been etched into the granite. Buried, November 12th, 2025. I looked at my watch. That was today's date. I looked around wildly, convinced someone was watching, but the cemetery was empty, quiet, and vast. I realized the horror wasn't in the dates, it was in the act of recording. The stone was telling me that my death was not an event, but a foregone conclusion that had already been filed and recorded, and I was just experiencing the timeline. The entity that placed it here had simply known the facts. I didn't remove the stone. I couldn't. It felt more permanent than anything I had ever placed in the ground. I just worked around it. I still work at St. Michael's. I still check on the stone every few days. It remains untouched, clean, and impossibly cold. I've accepted it, but now, whenever I dig a new grave, I feel a constant, deep shiver of recognition. I know that one of these days, one of the graves I dig won't be for a client. It will be the final piece of preparation for the only grave I truly need to attend. And the worst part is, I know exactly where it is.